Greetings, guys. It's Leah B from Prestige Veteran Medical Consulting. I am a U.S. Army veteran, physician assistant, and former compensation and pension examiner. Today, I want to come on and do a video that I've been excited to do for a while, and a lot of people have asked me to do, and that is about paratroopers and VA disability and how those things can sort of intersect, right? So we've done a few videos in the past about infantrymen and VA disability. I want to kind of get into other MOSs or occupational specialties and how they can have specific roles in VA disability and certain injury patterns. But the next best thing I wanted to do today was to do the paratrooper video, which, as many of you may know, you can have almost any occupational specialty or probably any occupational specialty in the Army, at least, and several across other branches that are fortunate enough to go to the Army's Airborne program, Airborne School. So when I was a young soldier, when I was an enlisted medic, as a private, I went to the school at Fort Benning, Georgia. It was amazing. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division. I don't recall how many jumps, not a ton, under 15, somewhere between 10 and 15 jumps as a young soldier, before I moved on to other units. And, you know, I was in the 101st for a while, did the air assault program there. And maybe we'll do a video and touch on that at a later time as well. And also, you know, special operations community, they may be doing halo jumps and other types of jumps. But when we talk about static line jumps, there are a specific amount of, you know, different forces that can come onto the body from those really short jumps that are kind of very fast and furious, right? So I want to go over some of that literature that I use and some of the things that I discuss when it comes to paratroopers and VA disability, because you guys, we have additional risk factors when it comes to things that can affect our joints, our bones, all of those things, right? So without further ado, let's get into some of the literature that we talk about. So an article titled Military Parachuting Injuries, a literature review published in Occupational Medicine in 1999. I know that's an old one, but it's still a paratrooper. It's still relevant. Highlights some of the mechanical forces involved in military parachute operations and the injuries that could result. In the article, the authors discuss that an injury could occur at any time from exiting the aircraft to removal of the harness, but that the majority of injuries occur from the impact to the ground, right? So many people can get a static line injury. I saw people get their bicep kind of like pulled down and get that Popeye deformity, right? I've seen people, you know, how many times have you seen people get intertwined in, you know, having a jumper come down and not slip away, right? God forbid somebody smacked the side of the plane. That would be awful. So those are some of the things that can happen in air that can cause an injury, collisions, right? But then also hitting the ground, right? So if somebody doesn't do a proper parachute landing fall or PLF, that's why they taught us to do those things, right? They taught us to do those landings so that we could minimize injuries, right? Also getting drugged by a parachute, right? So that happened to me while I was in jump school on my 5th jump. I think it was a night jump and it was combat equipment. And I went unconscious. So I wasn't really great at pulling the slips the correct direction. And so I slipped into the wind, I smashed into the ground. I lost consciousness for maybe, I don't know how long, 15, 20 seconds probably. And I was drugged quite a while before I stopped, came to, had the medics over top of me. And they were like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, I'm not getting recycled. Not that that's a great thing to do, but I was in my early 20s. So I popped my parachute strap off and I was like, I'm good to go. You know, it might've been my 4th jump. I think it was my 4th jump in jump school. So I might've had one left. But those things can happen, right? So you can exit the aircraft and have an injury. You can have an injury smashing into the ground. You can get drugged. A lot of things can happen, right? So again, parachutist is subject to many forces upon landing, to include downward force from gravity, sideways force from wind, sideways force from oscillation, possible rotational forces if the parachutist is spinning, right? Among the reported injuries, they observed that after completing an airborne jump, injuries to the low back and knees and hips were among the most frequent injuries, right? That makes sense because you're, you know, landing on your ankle to your hip, you know, that can be your hip injury. lower extremity injuries are going to be your most common ones. Not to say that those upper extremities can't happen. Like I said, with those static line injuries, especially. So another article, this is further highlighted in a fact sheet released from the Army Public Health Center titled Injury Prevention, Just the Facts of Parachuting Injuries. They discuss the most common parachuting injuries to include those to the lower extremities, low back, and head. Also, if you get a head injury, right? So those are just a couple articles. Let me see if I've got a couple more to read off to you. I had one about the T10 Delta and just the weights of the rucks and the parachuting. When you're doing a combat equipment jump, increasing the force and energy for when you're hitting the ground when you're doing those combat loads. But those are definitely things that you should talk about in your personal statements. If you had an airborne injury that you can discuss, hopefully those journal articles will be helpful to you. Please drop some comments if you guys enjoyed this video. And if there are other videos that you would like to hear about, please let me know and I'll definitely get on top of those. All right. Thanks for watching, guys.